In our previous episode, we saw Jacob leaving Laban, leaving that land, leaving the old land. He kind of leaves in not the best of circumstance. He kind of makes a run for it, and then he's able to kind of make peace with Laban. And he's got his flocks or whatever, and he's got his two wives, his wives' maids that he also had relations with, and he's got his 11 children. So pretty exciting stuff. So now we're moving on. He's trying to get his way back into the land that God originally called him to go back into. Genesis 32:1. Then Jacob went on his way, and God's angels met him. 32:2. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's army." So he named that place Mahanaim, meaning two armies. So Jacob's got to keep making his way into the land of where his father was from, Isaac's land, because he's supposed to kind of inherit that. Genesis 32:3. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. So Jacob's sending out some messengers, letting them know that they're on their way, letting them know that they're in the area, so it's not like some bandits just show up on the hills and it gets Esau all riled up and just ensues conflict. But to send the messenger out is a way of kind of asking for a bit of peace. Genesis 32:4. And he commanded them, "Say this to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been living temporarily with Laban and have stayed there till now." 32:5. And I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, manservants, and womanservants, and have sent to tell my lord that I may find mercy and kindness in your sight. So this is the message that he's sending to his brother. It's all peaceful and saying that he's temporarily dwelling, he's coming back, and he's coming back with a lot of stuff. Genesis 32:6. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and now he is on the way to meet you, and 400 men are with him." So Jacob just sends out his messengers, comes out with a nice little peaceful little message to send to his brother. And his brother is on his way to meet him, and he's got his 400 goons with him. Well, that doesn't sound like a favorable welcome party. I mean, these aren't his 400 drinking buddies. These are probably the well-trained warriors of the house of Esau. So I could see why Jacob would be a little bit nervous, a little bit upset with this situation, a little bit worked up, a bit more agitated than you would normally be. He just went through this kind of ordeal with Laban trying to get out of that place, and now he's going from trouble in one direction into trouble into another. So there we go. Genesis 32:7. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two groups. 32:8. Thinking, if Esau comes for one group and smites it, then the other group which is left will escape. Well, there we go. Here comes the army. Jacob's not really liking that. He's afraid. He's distressed, and so he gets his group to kind of split up. And that way, if one half gets attacked, then hopefully the other half can get away and they don't all get destroyed. So Jacob, he prays now. Genesis 32:9. Jacob said, "O God, my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your people, and I will do you good.'" 32:10. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercy and loving kindness and all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I passed over this Jordan long ago, and now I have become two companies. 32:11. Deliver me, I pray you, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and smite us all, the mothers with the children. 32. 12. And you said, I will surely do you good and make your descendants as the sand of the seas, which cannot be numbered for magnitude. This is incredible. He is discussing with God in this prayer here everything that he's been through, his whole experience, from being kicked out of his family's house with nothing but his walking stick, making it down to the country of Laban, doing his works there, coming back, having these promises made to him. Before he made it down there, he had that vision or whatever, and he made that pillar. And now he's on the way back. He just managed to escape the trouble of Laban. Laban was very furious with him when he left, for he did not leave through the proper channels. And now here we go, encountering his older brother again, the one that wants to kill him. So it's quite a journey, but how can he be like the sand of the sea, his descendants, if he is dead? Genesis 32:13, and Jacob lodged there that night, and took from him what he had with him as a present to his brother Esau. 32:14, 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams. 32:15, 30 milk camels with their coats, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys, 10 donkey colts. 32:16, and he put them into the charge of his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass over before me, and put a space between drove and drove. So it looks like he's got quite a bit of stuff that he's going to be giving to his brother. I don't know if this is everything that he has, that he's just kind of divided up. Maybe there's some sort of remnant, something else beyond that. But I think it's almost as if he's trying to buy his own head, buy forgiveness from his brother by giving him everything that he's got. Genesis 32:17. And he commanded the first, when Esau my brother meets you and asks, to whom you belong, where you are going, and whose are the animals before you. 32:18. Then you shall say, they are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us. Genesis 32:19. And so he commanded the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, this is what you are to say to Esau when you meet him. Genesis 32:20. And say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the presence that goes before me, and afterwards I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So this looks like quite the situation. So they're going to send them through in little groups, little droves. And each time one of these droves goes by, they're going to ask. And you're going to be like, well, you know, Jacob, he's on his way. He's further back in the group. So they'll be like looking, and then they'll let the first group through, and then they'll let the next one in, and then eventually they'll all get through, right? And then they'll be at Jacob. I think that's kind of what his plan is here. It's some sort of scheme. Genesis 32:21. So the present went on before him, and he himself lodged that night in the camp. 32:22. But he rose up that same night and took his 2 wives, his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. So he comes up with this plan. He gets everybody in on this plan. And that night, before they're able to do it, he kind of got everybody, well, he didn't get everybody up. He got his wives up and his sons up. And I guess his wives' servants or whatever as well. And it's like they're just going to book it. They're just going to go over the ford into the Jabbok. So it's quite the plan. Genesis 32:23. And he took them and sent them across the brook Also, he sent over all that he had. I wonder if this was like a lifting thing, in that they got there or whatever, then he had to kind of boost everybody up and then boost all the stuff up to get it all to go across. But Jacob wasn't able to cross with them. Something else happened to prevent that from happening. Genesis 32:24. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. So there we go. He's got everything across, and now he's going to wrestle with the man. Who is this man? Do we know him? Will we know more about him? Well, we'll have to see. Genesis 32:25. And when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and Jacob's thigh was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. So he was unable to get Jacob to submit to him. So he had to escalate to the next level. And he touched the hollow of his thigh. I think that's like his inner leg. And put it out of joint. So maybe that's his hip out of joint or his knee out of joint. Probably his hip. I mean, that's a that's a pretty severe injury to be sustained. Like, I mean, you know, if you're an old person and it's like you break your hip, you basically die because you never get walking again, and it kind of messes you up. But when you're younger and it happens, it's still a very severe thing to break, because it just messes everything up. So, well, he's definitely a fighter, Jacob. He's just not giving up, even though he's outmatched and outclassed. Genesis 32:26. Then he said, "Let me go, for day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you declare a blessing upon me." Who is it that Jacob is wrestling with that he begs for a blessing? Who is that? Who could it be? Who is capable of blessings? Genesis 32:27. The man asked him, "What is your name?" And in shock of realization, whispering, he said, "Jacob," meaning supplanter, schemer, trickster, swindler. Genesis 32:28. And he said, "Your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel," meaning contender with God. "For you have contended and have power with God and with men and have prevailed." Well, that is absolutely incredible. One of the most amazing things. So we have Jacob here wrestling with God, not giving up. God cripples him. He, messes up his thigh, takes it out of joint, whatever. He just keeps going, doesn't give up, doesn't surrender, just keeps going and demands a blessing. And finally, God changes his name from Jacob the supplanter to Israel, the contender with God. Gave him a new name, a new paradigm shift. Israel is his name now. Incredible, just absolutely incredible. Genesis 32:29. Then Jacob asked him, "Tell me, I pray you, what in contrast is your name?" But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And the angel of God declared a blessing on Jacob there. What is this? What is this? He asks the name, but he doesn't give the name. Why is this? Who is this? Who could this be? If he was simply a messenger of God, he would have no issue giving his name. So in many languages outside of English, there's a lot more respect. People respect their elders, they respect authority, whatever. People just generally have more respect. And it's built into the languages themselves, and certain words and pronouns and honorifics and things that are used when dealing with other people. And so Jacob knows who this is. He knows. That's why he was wrestling with him. He wanted that blessing. He knew who it was that he was wrestling with. But when he asked him the name, he did not get the name. But he didn't need the name because he knew who it was. And and there's a lot of times in the New Testament when, people always say stuff along the lines that Jesus never said he was God. It was like he absolutely did say he was, just not in those direct words. He said it indirectly, and he said it in such a way that the Pharisees, they were getting ready with their stones. They were ready to stone him. They were ready to kill him for blasphemy, for claiming that he was God. Just because the words that are used do not mean something directly doesn't mean that the indirect method of saying something is any less true or any less valid. And I think that's what we have going on here in this situation. The man that he was wrestling with was God, and Jacob knew that, and he asked. And then it's, why is it that you ask me my name? And that is an indirect way of answering that. And it's like, it's like God's way of saying, it's like, I know why you're asking. I don't know. It's pretty cool, but I don't know. I think that's, people are gonna get to this part in the video. Well, if anyone ever watches this, and they'll be like, "Man, you're crazy," and that's okay. Genesis 32 and 30, and Jacob called the name of the place Pen-el, the face of God, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and my life is spared and not snatched away." It's a pretty cool verse. So he names it Pen-el, meaning the face of God. For I have seen God face to face. It's a literal encounter there, right? He literally wrestled with God to get a blessing. I think a lot of us here, we wrestle with God on a lot of stuff, a lot of silly things, but we don't literally physically wrestle with Him. We just kind of, do it more metaphorically than literally. But man, what an event! It's just wild. Genesis 32:31, and as he passed Penuel, which is Pen-el, the sun rose upon him, and he was limping because of his thigh. 32:32. That is why to this day Israelites do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the hollow of the thigh, because the angel of the Lord touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh on the sinew of the hip. That's incredible. I don't know if they still do that today, or I guess they probably would. I don't know what that's called. Some of their kosher things or something. Maybe we'll see later on more stuff about that. That could be kind of interesting. I'd like to see that. Yeah, it was... wow, what an adventure. Craziest part about this is that we still haven't ran into Esau yet and actually had anything happen there. This chapter, it starts off, it looks like we're going to encounter Esau and Jacob and Esau. They're going to get reunited and something's going to happen. That must be what's going to happen next. But instead, we have Jacob wrestling with God and God bestowing him a new name. Oh, incredible. Amazing. Cool stuff. I do feel as if I am gushing about this just a little bit too much. But this is just such an incredible chapter. Wrestling with God. Oh, man.